Responding just to that, the question about collectively knowing truth and prescription for seeking truth, if I can speak to this in the limited capacity that I can, just kind of spontaneously having seen Christians comment on this, whatever these thoughts might be of value, my intuition is that if you think of our distributed consciousness in a certain way, without getting too metaphysical about it, but that we're all kind of interconnected in some capacity. We're all informing one another. We're not islands unto ourselves. And yet, at least in the human scenario, what we're familiar with right now, pragmatically, realistically speaking, I mean, everybody's just going to be talking from their own different experience. It evolves throughout history, but you have different collections that, the Buddhists have their truths and Christians in this. It's not completely relative per se. And you have these extremes of like, oh, there's no real truth and it's all just in the mind. And then there's like, no, there's an absolute truth and some are closer to it than others. I think it's a bit of both. And so I ascribe to a lot of Alan Watts' stuff about that's truth. Like the Tao that's spoken is not the Tao. Like really somatically attuning to it, using all your senses to kind of get a scent for it as far as you're able to. And there's certain collections of people that can grok that, but to realistically say that, oh, we're all going to collectively have the same truth, at least in the human context, I don't see that viable in the foreseeable future. But that the next best thing is that if you propagate that you can have truth as your North Star, like I have a tattoo on my chest that says, live to love, strive for truth, thrive on life. And so I feel like you can point people in the right direction without knowing the destination. You don't have to have a firm destination. In fact, that corrupts the seeking. You get closer to it, there's a distribution, there's a spectrum, like, well, there's this narrative, this narrative, this narrative. That's a bit of a better narrative, at least relative to the other ones. There's the, soap opera, Christian narratives and stuff of God and, whatever that is. And then there's like the Buddhist perspectives, and then there's whatever it is, like just articulate your view of reality and another person articulates their view of reality. You could just recognize the implicit dynamics in them. It's a meta-modern thing, right? And so if at least you can establish that there's a distribution, better and worse operational models of your reality. My favorite bit, and last thing I'll say, is I love Groundhog Day as an example of this, where Bill Murray's character is, at the beginning of the movie, operating, whether he realizes it or not, off a very self-serving mentality. And it proves to be quite miserable for him when he's forced to confront it and he can't even escape existence. And so he starts trying to experiment with different relationships to his community to the point where he gets good at it and he's enjoying his existence and he's optimizing for the well-being of everyone instead of just himself at the expense of others. And so I say that, if you've got no choice but to exist, as far as you might as well get good at existing, and that there are better ways of existing, truer ways of operating, let's say. I don't know if this is valuable, if I've taken it in the wrong direction, sorry, but yeah, I'll just leave it there. So I don't know if this is helpful, but hopefully it contributes a little bit. So thanks for the comment. I think it's a very rich, interesting exploration that's worthwhile. So I just enjoy it. I think the funnest way to interact with this is like a kid in a sandbox. I had a conversation with a friend earlier about that whole quote of, when old men plant trees that they won't sit in the shade of. There's an interesting relationship that's almost Buddha-like, who is far more playful than he's sometimes depicted, where he's not proselytizing, he's just enjoying what he's doing and speaking from what truths he feels like he's understanding. And if people grok it, great. If they don't, fine. And so when you feel that playful and lighthearted with it, I think you impart value without feeling like, oh, we need a secure truth and we need to delineate it, we need to articulate it and convince others of it. Yeah, good luck with that. There's kind of a sense of not just humanity, but I think of consciousness that pushes against that. It's Alan Watts has a cool thing about that if we're all, splinters of consciousness or of God or something, there's almost like a selflessness that you can notice in its best permutations where it doesn't want to do that, to concretize things and say this is truth, because then you've almost diminished it by being that rudimentary and trying to isolate it. The more you do that, the less you get a handle for it, because it's interconnected with everything. It just, that's the most people really honestly seek it, come to that conclusion in some capacity, in however way they end up articulating it. So hopefully it's of value. Sorry for the 5-minute video, but that's what I got, and I'll read the rest of the comments and, I don't know, contribute accordingly. So thanks, great conversation, love it.